And we got to hit the Clippers while we're here.
For sure.
Because right before we started this show, news broke in the most Kawhi Leonard way possible that the Clippers had signed him to an extension. Normally we hear about these extensions through Woj or Shams. Nope, this actually got out through a Clippers just regular press release like it was 2004. So very on brand for Kawhi Leonard. But were they right? Because the Clippers have been playing very well lately. Were they right to extend him?
I mean, I don't think you had a choice but to extend him, if that makes sense. Now, obviously, with Kawhi Leonard, there's always been question marks, right? It's, the situation with his health has always, in some way, shape, or form, come back to haunt him, come back to haunt this Clippers team. The experiment of him and Paul George has been a long time coming. Now, am I a full believer in this Clippers team just yet? No, because much like you and your PTSD from the 76ers, even though I'm not a Clippers fan, I have PTSD as a basketball fan with the Clippers. They seem to do this, right? We get versions of them throughout the regular season that are really, really good, and then something goes wrong at the worst possible time. Whether it's a Paul George injury, whether it's a Kawhi Leonard injury, now you bring James Harden into the mix. Now, I was somebody when James Harden arrived in Los Angeles, I said, look, this is not going to work the way that they want it to work. I know James Harden put out that quote, gave that quote a few weeks ago where he's like, where are all those people now? We're still here. We're just waiting for April, because that's when you'll really prove us wrong. As we know, James Harden is not somebody who is the James Harden you see in the regular season when you really need him to in the postseason. We're waiting for that James Harden to appear. We're waiting for that consistency because, like I said, if history repeats itself, something's going to go wrong with this Clippers team at the worst possible time. You need next man up, and that's going to be James Harden. So I don't think you had a choice but to extend Kawhi. I'm a Kawhi Leonard fan. I hope that I'm wrong in terms of something going wrong with this team. I just don't know if I'm 100% a believer yet, but they're playing great basketball right now. Shout out to them.
I have to admit, I am blown away. I was wrong. I will admit when I am. I thought for sure, like a lot of teams that have jettisoned James Harden, who didn't want to be there, that it was great for the Sixers and really not great for the Clippers, because we saw that before, right? I mean, he goes to Houston, and yes, they got within 26 missed three-pointers of the NBA Finals, and then he goes and forms a super team in Brooklyn, and that doesn't work out, and all of a sudden he wants out and he wants to go to Philly and reunite with his guy Daryl Morey, and that doesn't work out. And for me, it was just like more trouble than he's worth. He's been awesome. Started out really, really slow in LA, 20-6 since. I'm kind of blown away. I'm blown away not just by James Harden and how he's played and how he's integrated himself with this team, but also Russell Westbrook falling back to the bench unit. Them figuring out, I thought for sure when you have such ball dominant players with Harden and PG and Kawhi, like
same.
This is not PG go stand in the corner. Kawhi likes to work into his shot. He likes to dribble into things, back guys down, whatever, but they've somehow figured it out. I think you're absolutely right that this Kawhi extension was like kind of priced in.
Right.
Like you kind of look at it and go, well, what's the alternative? Because we're not going to give up and we're not going to let him walk. So now as you spin this forward, Ash, does that mean PG is also priced in? Because there are reports that they're trying to extend him as well.
I think you have to. I mean, listen, they put so much stock in this experiment of this partnership, if you will, of Kawhi and PG-13. It was that way from the beginning, and it's been a long time coming to this point here. Like I said, every single season, something happened, something went wrong where you didn't get the return on your investment. They're building that brand new arena in Inglewood. There's a lot of money going into that. Yep. That's not for just some, no shade for some bench players to play in. You want your superstars. You want the guys you invested all these tears and dollars into and patience into to go ahead and reap the benefits of that. I think it's great. I just want to go ahead and see. And much to your point, I think it's great that they have figured out a way to share that basketball, because that was my biggest concern. You have a bunch of ball dominant players on one team. There's not enough ball for all those guys to go around. So how they're playing now is exceptional. It's great. It's proving a lot of people wrong when it comes to the regular season. I'm just waiting to see how this continues after the All-Star break, because that is when the games really start to matter. And I need to see if what is happening now will continue down the stretch. My verdict is still out. My
verdict is out too. And I, like you, am cautious because I live in Los Angeles. I know a Clippers fan, and that Clippers fan you could count them all in Los Angeles. I'm sorry, Clippers fans. I hate to wound you like this, but you could count them if we use both of our hands, probably. But The math here is what's interesting about it in a different way, because you mentioned that arena that they're about to open. I've driven by there in Inglewood. It's right down the street from SoFi Stadium, which is the NFL's like premier stadium now. It looks beautiful.
Yeah.
Steve Ballmer has spared no expense. Everybody knows about how many toilets he put in there. He's very excited about the toilets for some reason. But I wonder, because you've got Steve Ballmer, who's, I believe, the richest owner in the NBA and who can just hit that second luxury apron and not have to really care about it. And because of the arena where they go, yeah, we're just going to re-sign Kawhi. We're going to re-sign PG. We're going to hopefully win in the postseason this year, at least make a deep playoff run. But ultimately, it behooves us to have star marquee names out there on the placard in lights when we open the arena. But I do want to ask you about this, because I think PG and Kawhi, they're almost no-brainer automatics, right? James Harden is a free agent this offseason. Like, are you bringing James Harden back just automatically? What kind of deal? How many years? Like, they've got to find money for James Harden. And we all know that the Sixers didn't, and that made him not happy.
James Harden's return to the Los Angeles Clippers will be dependent on which James Harden I get in the playoffs. I'm not giving James Harden anything if he gives me what he gave the 76ers in that last game. Like, and that should have been the conversation.
Almost
when
like I converted you.
You know what I mean? That should have been the conversation when they brought him in. Listen, we're bringing you in here, but this is like, you got to show me something. You got to prove to me that what everyone's saying about you is not true. Because listen, James Harden, phenomenal player when he's on his P's and Q's. Nobody can doubt that. Honestly, one of my favorites. But then he shows you sometimes how just removed and aloof he can be when it comes to the game of basketball, especially when things are not going his way. And it just goes ahead and erases everything good that he does throughout the course of a season. And sometimes people go ahead and forget what he's done in his career. If James Harden gives me the James Harden that he's giving us right now in the regular season, he'll be back in a Clippers uniform. If he doesn't, I don't know where he ends up.
But see, that's the thing, right? This is where James Harden tricks us into being like, you know who's good? James Harden. Like, during the regular season, James Harden. Good. Last year, he changed the way. Doc Rivers said, listen, I need you to change the way you play. It's not going to be James Harden in Houston where you're scoring 32 and you're hitting 7 threes a game and it's step back and ISO and dribble. Because, you know, he has lost a step, and that's okay. We all have as we get older. But regular season James Harden is pretty much always good. Postseason James Harden, after leaving OKC, where they got within a hair's breadth of making the finals, hasn't been as good. Yes, they got within a hair's breadth again in Houston, but then all of a sudden he won it out. And again, as we mentioned, he goes to Brooklyn. They form this super team. They play 13 games together, don't even make the playoffs. And then he wants out. He goes to the Sixers. He goes to the postseason again. And what happens? They fall off a cliff against the Celtics, and he absolutely no-shows in games 6 and 7. And you're right. If you're paying James Harden this offseason in, you know, his mid-30s, however many years he's going to want, and he's going to want years because he's going to want security, you got to see it in the postseason. And much like the 76ers that he just left, you know, my one Clippers fan would tell you, they haven't done it yet. So the Clippers got to show me, right? They got to show both of us. I just want to see it.
If it's just one Clippers fan in Los Angeles, who's filling the arena when the Clippers play? Are those just like actors? Are those paid actors?
It could be paid actors. Might be like Chargers fans when they have Chargers games. And then all of a sudden it's like a destination. Like, let's go to LA and see the Steelers play the Chargers.
Free tickets they give at the raffles at halftime during Chargers games? Go see the Clippers.
A nice experience. We'll go when you come out to LA. We'll go.